All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another class. So, today we're continuing chapter 7.5. And when we started this chapter last week, I said that basically in 7.3, we learned how to manipulate our data. Basically, we use formulas, we use functions to calculate our data, put in data, and so on. And in 7.4, we learned how to format the data, how to change up its appearance, how to add decimal places, how to align, shrink text, and so on. And in 7.5, what we're basically learning here is how can we locate different data. So you have the data in the spreadsheet, but how can you quickly and efficiently locate that data? So we started with sorting yesterday. Does anyone remember what is ascending order? What order is ascending order? What order would the data be in?
Sir, the smallest to the greatest.
Exactly. Smallest to the greatest. Or that's for numbers. They're going to be smallest to greatest. If it's letters, no.
A to Z, sir.
A to Z. Very good. And if it's descending, what would it be for numbers?
It will be
Largest to
greatest to
smallest.
smallest.
Largest to the smallest. Very good. And if it is letters,
It will be
Z
Z
to
to
A.
A.
Z to A. So that's important to remember. What is ascending and what is descending? Because when you're sorting data, you would have to know what order that data would go in. So any form of data, whether it's letters, whether it's numbers, whether it's a date, whether it's money, any form of data, you have to know if you sort this data, what order it will go in. And it's either ascending or descending, and you have to remember um, what order is ascending and what order is descending. Good. So that's basically the one way that we can search for data using that sort option. And I would have shown in the last class how we do sorting. Today what we're going to be looking at is filtering records. How we can filter out certain information. Because when you're sorting data, the data is still there. For example, let me see if I can find a table. Donations, meal. Yes. So, for example, this table that we have here, if I sort this, let's see, let me sort the date. So I'm going to right click in this column here, and I'm going to go to sort, and I'm going to do oldest to new. Now, if you notice, when I sorted, all of the information remained. Say, for example, I want to sort A and C. I want to separate them. I want A first and then C. So notice we have all the A first, and then we have all the C. Now, what if you don't want to see the C? You don't want to see the C. In that case, if you sort, you're still going to see all of the data. You're going to see all the data in the table when you are sorting. But when you are not sorting, when you don't want to see specific data, you can use the filter option. So that's what we're going to be looking at now, how we can filter our data so that we can have basically only see what we want to see. So say for example, this table here, we can take out the C information and not see the C and basically see only the ear. So we're going to look at that and see what basically I'm talking about. So filtering records. Let's have a reader for that. I think stopped it, Emmanuel. Grace, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, can you read the first paragraph for us?
Filtering records. Filtering is the process of selecting some of the records of a worksheet on the basis of certain criteria. Excel will list only those records that match the selection criteria and hides the others. The full set of data can be viewed at any time. Excel has autofilter and advanced filters. Autofilter also allows selection criteria based only on a single field, while advanced filtering allows more complex selection criteria.
Okay, thank you. So, when you're filtering data, you are basically searching for data, and that data is going to be based on a certain criteria. So, just like how the count if you guys can remember count if, when we were using count if, we were counting based on a criteria. For example, in this case here, we were counting if it is less than 10. So the same thing is going to happen with filtering. You set a criteria. You say, for example, is the date between um, January and February, or is the currency greater than 1,000? Some sort of criteria you are going to set. And basically, only that data will appear. Only the data for that criteria will appear. Anything else that does not meet the criteria will simply be hidden. So we have two methods of filtering. It's important to remember the two: auto filter and advanced filter. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna look at the first one, auto filter, and how we use the auto filter. So Jada, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, can you read for us auto filter?
Autofilter. Select a table with a header row, and for early versions of Excel, go to the Date option on the menu bar. Click Filter and select Autofilter from the submenu. In later versions, you must click the filter icon on the Data tab of the ribbon. Notice that all the headers now have a drop-down arrow in their cell. Click on one of these arrows to reveal a list of possible filters. Clicking on a value will filter. Clicking on a value will filter for that value. Clicking on Show All will display the table in its entirety, and clicking on Top 10 activates the Top 10 dialog box. In the dialog box, you may choose to filter for top or bottom, a number value, or either items or percent. For example, you can decide to filter for the top 12 items or the bottom 20%.
Very good. So when you're using the auto filter, you select a table that will have headers, or basically it's going to have headings. And when you click on that filter option, notice this is what it's going to look like. This icon here, this is the filter icon. So when you click on this icon, what is going to appear is some drop down arrows in the headers. So please remember that. In the header, or where you have the headings, when you click on this filter icon, it will create some drop down arrows. So let's look at that. Let me close out this here. So we're using this same file here, and this is our table here. So I'm gonna border it so we can see it clearly, and I'm gonna auto fit the data so that we can see that clearly also. Good. So we have our table here. We have our headings at the top here. Now, anywhere you click inside this table, always note that Excel can detect the table automatically. So you don't need to highlight this table here. You can simply click a cell inside of it, and Excel will detect that table. Always remember that. So I can click any cell, and I go to the Data tab. So notice it's under the data tab, and you're gonna notice the filter icon. So when you click on that, notice some drop down arrows appeared in the headings. I'm gonna click on it. Notice the filter icon, the filter icon is highlighted. So if I click on it, it just took off the filter there. So once again, I'm clicking any cell inside this table. I'm clicking on tin food, and I'm going to click on the filter icon in the data tab, and notice the drop down arrows in the headings. If I click outside of the table, notice I'm clicking in age 6. I'm outside of the table, and I click filter. This can't be applied to the selected range because there's basically nothing out there. Even if I try it on this data at the bottom here, I'm gonna see if we can detect the top two. Notice, yeah, notice it detected the top two columns of data here, and it's basically considering it like it's the head in there. So it's detecting it as a table. So you click any cell, click on the filter icon, the drop down arrows will appear. Now remember, what we're looking at is the auto filter. And I want you guys to take note that another name for the auto filter is the simple filter. So please take note of that. Another name for auto filter is simple filter. We can contrast it with the advanced filter. So there's a simple filter, that one that filters in a simple way, and then there's the advanced filter, which has more options, more features, more settings, and so on. So one is simple and one is advanced. So auto filter and simple filter are the same thing. Are you guys following so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Alright. So how do we use the simple filter now? Now, basically when we clicked on this icon here, we turned on the simple filter. So how do we use it now? Well, we have to use these drop down arrows. So you basically click on the arrow, any one of them. You're clicking on the arrow for which column you want to filter. So say for instance, I want to filter this transport column here. I simply click on the drop down arrow. I simply click on the drop down arrow, and I have a few options here. So I can sort A to Z. Let me do that set to A. So notice the so I can do sort in here. So I don't need to right click and use that method. This is an additional method to sort. So that's the first two options there. You can even sort by color. So if there was different colors inside of the cells, actually we looked at this last week when we used this double sort, where we used different levels of sorting. I showed you guys this middle option here, where by default you are going to sort cell values. If there's values in the cell, if there's numbers, if there's letters, and so on. But you can also sort cell color. If the cells have colors, you can sort it. If the fonts have colors, you can sort it also. So what are the other options? Well, here, text filters is where you're gonna find the actual filter options. So say for instance, we have the word sea and air in this column here. Now say you only want to see the word sea. So we're gonna say equal, and then this box is gonna appear. So notice we could change it here also. Equal, does not equal, is greater than, and so on. So I'm gonna choose equal, and I'm gonna type in the word sea. So the filter or the criteria is equal to C. So that's like if you are doing a criteria or something like equal and in quotation mark C. That's basically what we're doing there. So we're doing equal C, and if I press OK, notice you're only seeing the data for C. You're not seeing air anymore. If you look on the left hand side, notice that it's showing the rows in blue. And if you notice right between 6 and 11, it's showing a double line there. This double line that you're seeing here indicates that a row or rows are hidden. So once you see it at the top also, once you see it at the top, like for example this here, once you see a double line, that is indicating a row or column is hidden. So when you're filtering the data, what's actually happening is that it runs that criteria. So in our case, our criteria, once again, is if it's equal to C. Similar to what I just wrote here, like if we're using the count if, equal C. So we're only looking for that word C. And it's going to hide the rest of data and only show us C. If you want to take it off, let's see, clear filter. So we just took off the filter there. Say for instance, we're going to go to receive now. Click on the drop down arrow. We have number filters, the same options are here once again, equal to, less than. So say for instance you want numbers greater than 5,000. So we're going to filter greater than 5,000. Okay. So notice we now have data greater than 5,000. Same for shipped. We can go to the number filter. We can even do, say for instance, words. We're using the transport type now. I'm clicking on that drop down arrow, text filter. We can say a word beginning with. So say a word beginning with A. We can filter and only show words beginning with A. I'm going to click OK. Notice air appeared because that is beginning with A. So if I don't think it's going to change. No, it's not. No, it's not going to change because that was done after the filter. So, but that is how you would put in the criteria basically. You use those filter options, these filter options here. You can say if it's equal to, if it's not equal to, but notice this is for text. These options are for text. So if you want a word beginning with a certain letter, so say you want beginning with SE, you can type in SE, press OK, and C will appear. So the other options we have ends with. So if we say ends with R, here is going to appear. It's ending with the letter R. Clear that. What other options do we have? Contains, does not contain. So it contains a certain character. So we're looking for a word that contains the letter I. Equal. Notice we have air, because air has the letter I inside of it. We're looking for does not contain. So it does not contain this letter. So it does not contain X. So, or basically let me try S. Does not contain S. Here does not contain the letter S. So that's why C there was filtered out. And then we have other options there. So if you go to the number column now, a column that has number, you're going to see different options here. These are the number filters. Equal to, does not equal to, if the number is greater than, equal to. Notice all the questions, the criteria I told you guys about. If it is less than, equal to, between a certain number. So we can say between So is greater than, so greater than, let's see, 4,000, but less than 10,000. So we're not supposed to see this 12,000 and these two 3,000s here. We have 3,500 and 3,250 filter. So notice we're not seeing that. We're seeing between 4,000 and 10,000. So that is how you filter data with the auto filter. It hides the data that you do that does not meet the criteria, that does not meet the question that you're basically asking. You can also check the boxes at the bottom here. So say for instance you don't want to see these values, you only want to see values with 9870. You can do that also. But when you're doing that, you're basically doing a manual filter. You're manually selecting what you want from what you don't want. It's much more easier to set the criteria. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
When did you guys lose me? Or were you hearing me all the time?
I think you just got kicked out by the internet.
Oh, like a second ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I was saying, um, when you click on the drop down arrow, these options here is basically manual filter. These are basically manual. So you can select what you want from what you don't want. But this is a little more harder because you have to go and manually do it. Whereas when you use this filter option here, you can set the criteria and it will search for that data automatically for you. So are you guys following on the simple filter on how to use it?
Well, yes, sir.
All right. So remember, it's very simple. You basically click inside the table, you click on the filter icon so that the drop down arrows appear, and then you use the drop down arrow to add your filter. That is all. You turn on the filter and then you use the drop down arrows um, to create your filter, create your criteria. Any questions before we move on?
No, sir.
All right. So next we're going to look at the advanced filter now. Now, as the name indicates, it's more advanced. So it has a bit more features. It has a bit more technicality to it. It's not as simple as the simple filter. So let's see what are the rules of using the advanced filter. Joshua, are you there? Joshua? Shikia?
Sir,
Can you read advanced filter for us?
advanced filter. Although the autofilter makes selecting records very simple, you may wish to have more control over the criteria used. You can place criteria in the spreadsheet itself and use the advanced filter to select records. You can then tell the computer the location of the records, the location of the criteria, and whatever and whether the list should be filtered in place or copied to another location. We will use the example shown in figure 7.43 to illustrate advanced filter. Notice the heading in row 1, rank, language, speakers, and percentage of population can be copied and pasted in range G1 to J1 and range G6 to J6. The criteria in G2 to G3 consist of more than 11 and less than 150 since these criteria are on the same row. This is an AND criteria. For the records to be selected, the rank has to be less than 11 and the speaker has to be greater than 150. We can now click we can now click in the data with the original data, the range A1 to D21, and then choose Data Advanced Filter. Menu options are advanced near the filter icon in later versions. If you click on the table first, the computer automatically selects the correct range for the table. You can now enter the range for the criteria, G1 to J2. Note if you click on the copy to another location option, you would then also choose a range where the new list should be copied. Figure 7.44 shows the resulting list.
Right. Thank you. So there's quite a few information here that you guys need to take note of. Firstly, when you're filtering, whether it's the simple filter, whether it's the advanced filter, what is the main thing you need? Anybody figure it out so far? What is the main thing that you need when you're filtering? When you're filtering, what is the main thing that you need?
Sir, a criteria.
A criteria. Very good. You need a criteria. So, I think someone was trying to join and that was off. Yes, when you're trying to filter any form of data, a criteria is required. So, when it was a simple filter, when we were clicking on these arrows here and putting in these filter here, these were criterias that we were basically putting in. Now, so for the advanced filter, but for the simple filter, you're putting the filter, the criteria in this option here. So if you notice, you're putting the criteria inside of a option here, a drop-down option. Now, when it comes to the advanced filter, where are you putting this criteria? Well, you are putting it on the spreadsheet itself. So if you notice this image below here, take a look at this image here. Over here, we have the original data. This is basically the table that you're filtering. So this can be compared to my table that I have here. This table with the data, the table on the left hand side is a table with the data that you want to filter. Now for the advanced filter, on the right hand side, notice you have a criteria range. So for the advanced filter, what you do, you type the criteria into spreadsheet itself. So you type it into cells. So if you notice, the criterias are typed into cells. But if you also notice, what they basically did, or what you have to do to create this criteria, is to highlight all of your headings, the same headings. Don't type it back because sometimes you might mistype it. And then you paste those headings in another location. So you copy the headings, paste it in another location, and then under the headings you put your criteria. So for example, under rank, they're looking for if there's any less than 10, less than 11. And on the speakers, they're looking for any number greater than 150. So when you're using the advanced filter, that's how you create your criteria. You copy heading as the first step, you copy your heading, and then under the headings, wherever you copied it, you type in your criteria. So remember, whatever filter you're using, you must have a criteria. Now, the next thing about the advanced filter It's basically three things you need: the location of the data or the location of the record. That's basically the main table, this original table here. So basically, you need the main data. That's the first thing you need, obviously, because that's where you filter it. Then, secondly, the location of your criteria, the criteria that you just created. This here is the location. Cell G1 to cell J2. That there is the criteria range. So remember, the headings is part of the criteria range because it has to know what question you're asking for what heading. So the location of the data, the location of the record, that's one. The location of the criteria, two. And then basically, where do you want the data to filter? If you notice, we have two locations. We have filter in place, or we can copy to another location. Now, so this is going to be number 3. Where are you filtering? Going back to the simple filter, when we were selecting these options here, like for example, equal to, let's do greater than 5,000. What you're basically doing here is that you're filtering in place. This is called filtering in place because you're filtering where the data is located. You're filtering in place. So the other option to copy to another location is basically used when you want to see, say for instance, you want to see this original data, but you also want to see the filtered data at the same time. So that is when you would copy to another location. So 3 things you need for the advanced filter. You need the original data or the location of it. So that's the image on the left hand side, this table. You need the location of the criteria. You need to create that. I just showed you how to create that. And then lastly, the location of the filter. Where are you putting the data? Are you going to filter it in place? Basically, inside of this table here, that's in place, or to another location. So this here is going to be your other location. You guys think you follow me so far?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so let's look at an example. Let me create a copy of this sheet here. Let's look at an example. Hopefully you guys get it a little better. So I'm going to delete this data here. I'm going to delete this over here. There. So remember, once again, we have our table here. So we have our table. That's the first requirement for our advanced filter. We have our table with the data. The second requirement, the criteria. We have to create our criteria. So what you're going to do, you're going to highlight your headings, copy it, and then basically below, you're going to paste it. The same headings. So notice the same headings. Now underneath it now, you type in your criteria. So for example, we can say greater than 5,000. They received, because remember it's matching up. That's why you would want to put it below so that you can see the information clearly. And then over here, we can say less than what? 7,000, 8,000. So now there's our criteria, this here. Headings with the questions below it. With the less than and the more than. That's our criteria. Now how do you carry out the advanced filter? Well, once again, you click any cell inside of the table. Any cell, you click inside of it. You go to data, And right next to the filter icon, you can see the word advance. So you click on advance, and this box will appear, the advanced filter box. It's a small box because it's only three pieces of information you need. At the very top, you're going to notice the location option. Filter in place or copy to another location. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the filter in place first. So the next option is the list range. What is the list range? The list range is the main data that you're filtering. So if you notice, around my table right now, we have some what is called marching ants. It's indicating that this was selected because I clicked inside of this table here. So it automatically detected the table. But say for instance, what if you didn't select it? What if you didn't click inside of it? You can still click on this arrow here. You're gonna come outside of this box here, and then you simply highlight the table. And then you click on the arrow again, and you just highlighted the list of data there. Now the second option here is to indicate what is the criteria range. So once again, you click on the arrow, or you don't even need to click on the arrow. You can click outside once it's in view, and you highlight, and you just highlighted your criteria range. So notice I have my main data, which is the list range. I have those cells highlighted here, and I have my criteria range highlighted here also. And remember, I'm filtering in place. So I have the three requirements here: the data, the filter, the criteria, and the location. So once you have all of that, click OK. And notice it just filtered the information there. It filtered in place. It filtered where the table was located. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me undo that. What we're gonna do, we are going to use the other option. We're gonna filter to another location. So once again, click any cell in this table, click on advance. Notice the table is automatically highlighted, marshlands going around. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna copy to another location. If you notice, the last option came up. When you filter in place, it's grayed out. You can't click on it because you're filtering in place where the table is located. But I want to copy to another location. So this box is going to appear now for me to select that location. So my table was already selected, the list range. I need to select the criteria. So I'm going to highlight all of this here for the criteria. And then the location, copy to. Where do I want to filter this data to? So you simply click on the first cell that you want the data to appear. You could highlight the headings, nothing's wrong. So say for instance, you count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 headings. So you highlight 6. Or you can simply, what's easier, just highlight the first cell. And from that first cell is where the data will start. So that will be a little more easier. Just select the first cell, click OK, and notice the data was filtered to another location. So it extracted it from this main table at the top here and put it at the bottom here. So this here is beneficial when you want to see the main table and you want to see that filtered information also. So that is how you use the advanced filter. That is how you filter in place, and that's how you filter to another location. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone confused that I need to go it over again? Alright, seems everybody got that. Um, Now, what else do you need to know about this advanced filter? The last thing you need to know about this advanced filter is the types of criteria. There are two types of criteria. I want you guys to take note of this. It's very important to remember. There are two types of criteria when it comes to the advanced filter. And actually later on when we look at database, we're going to be talking about criteria also. And we're going to come back to these same two types of criteria. So it's important for you to remember that. The first criteria is the AND criteria. And then we have the OR criteria. So those are our two criteria, AND and OR. So how can we differentiate them? How can we tell what is the difference between them? Well, remember, a criteria is a question. Basically, is it less than? Is it more than? Is it equal to? Something of that sort. And criteria has the criterias or the question in the same row. The and criteria has the questions or the criteria in the same row. So if you notice here in this example, the criteria less than 11 and greater than 150, it is inside of the same row. So once the criterias are in the same row, it is a AND criteria. Contrasting the OR criteria, if we move one of the criteria to the next line or to the next row, we are going to get a OR criteria. So if you notice in this example here, the 150 is in the top row and the less than 11 is in the bottom row. It doesn't matter if the 11 was at the top, and it doesn't matter if the 150 was at the bottom. It doesn't matter which order it is in. Once one of the criteria is in the top row and another criteria is in a row below, once they are in different rows, that is an OR criteria. So that's how you can tell the difference between the criterias. AND criteria, it's in the same row, and the OR criteria, it's in different rows. So why do we have two different types of criteria? Well, basically, the two different types of criteria, it's two different ways of questioning the data, two different ways of filtering the data. So let's see. So notice here, for the AND criteria, when you are using this criteria, remember you're asking a question. So think of it this way. When you're asking this AND criteria question, you're asking both questions at the same time. Think of it that way. So when you're using this criteria, for example, this example here, less than 11 on the rank and greater than 150 on the speakers, what this means is that for the record to be selected, the rank has to be less than 11 and the speaker has to be greater than 150 at the same time. At the same time, both of the data must match this criteria here. So if we, to better understand this, I would need to create the OR criteria. What I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this here. So let me insert a column here. Let me insert column here. And I'm gonna put and criteria. So that's the and criteria there. And over here, this is gonna be the or criteria. The and criteria answers all questions or criteria at the same time. And you can say for the or criteria, answers all questions or criteria one after each other. So it basically answers the first criteria, and when it finishes answering that first criteria, it moves on to the next one. It doesn't check them all at the same time. It basically does one at a time. So remember the or criteria, it has it in different rows. So I'm gonna drop that down to the other row. So we have our two criteria there. So notice the and criteria has the criteria in the same row. The or criteria has it in different rows. So I'm going to insert a row here so that I can align the data. So I'm going to create a filter with the or criteria now. I select a cell once again, select data, advance. Notice the table was highlighted here. Copy to another location, select my criteria. I'm going to select this criteria over here and copy to another location. What is my location? I want this cell here, start at this cell. Okay, now notice for this criteria I got more data than the and criteria. So if you notice, it's the same greater than 5,000, it's the same less than 8,000, same criteria. But simply because I put it in different locations, simply because one is an and criteria and one is an or criteria, I got different outputs. Why? Because the and criteria answers the questions at the same time. So for example, the criteria for received, it has to be greater than 5,000. If you look at the numbers here, 9,000 and 8,000 is greater than 5,000. But at the same time, the shipped has to be less than 8,000. And you're seeing that here, 6,500 and 7,000 is less than 8,000. So it answered both of this question at the same time. So if you look at the top here, this row here, 9,870 and 6,500, that was brought down there. And then this row here, torches, with the 8,650 and the 7,000, that was brought down. That answered both questions at the same time. Now the or criteria answers one question after the other. It answers one question after the other. So it's gonna look at the greater than 5,000 first. So if you notice, we have, now notice this is 4,900, but notice we have a 9,000, notice we have a 5,000, notice we have a 12, we have an 86. So we have numbers here greater than 5,000. But why do we have less than 5,000? That's not the criteria. That is because it is answering this question over here, this less than 8,000. If you look at the shipped, all of these numbers here are less than 8,000. We have 3,500. 3,500 is less than 8,000. So that is why it appeared. But because it is an or criteria, it is not following this rule or this question of being greater than 5,000, it basically only has to answer one of the other question. If it's greater than 5,000, then those data will appear. And if it is less than this 8,000 here, those data will appear. You guys think you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Alright, so to go it over once again to summarize the information, because I have to close off now because I have a meeting now. To summarize the information that we looked at so far, we looked at filtering. Remember, there's two types of filter. You have the auto filter and you have the advanced filter. The other name for the auto filter, you guys remember what was the other name?
Simple filter.
Very good, the simple filter. Now the simple filter, it's simple to use. You simply click on the icon and you click on the drop down arrows and you put in your criteria. Very simple to use. Whereas the advanced filter, you need requirements. You need the data, you need to design the criteria, and you need to state the location. So like you see in this example here. You design your table, design your criteria, and say where do you want to filter the data. Do you want to filter it in place, or do you want to filter to another location? Please remember what filtering in place means and what filtering to another location refers to. And then the criteria, remember there's two types of criteria. There's the and criteria and the or. What is the difference between the two? I have it right here. The and criteria answers the criteria at the same time. So it has to be greater than 5,000 and less than 8,000 at the same time. Only then you will see data. So if you notice, these two information here, it is greater than 5,000 and less than 8,000 at the same time. Whereas the OR criteria basically answers the question one after each other. So it looks for anybody greater than 5,000 and it filters out that information. Then it's going to look for anybody less than 8,000 and it's going to filter out that information. And if you notice, because of that, we got more information. So you can think of it, you can think of the OR criteria like doing like a range, but it won't technically be a range, so I guess you can leave that out. Don't confuse yourself. Just remember that the AND answers both criteria at the same time, and the OR is one after each other. So if you actually add another one, say for example, you can say equal to 5,000 at the bottom here, then all three of these criterias, all three of them, it's going to look at it one after each other and then put the data. Alright, do you guys have any questions before we close off?
No, sir.
No, sir.
I hope you guys, well, when we read the exercise, once again, just like how we did previously, when we read the exercise, we're going to get a more practical understanding of these simple filter and advanced filter. So if you don't get it now, you should get it by the time you guys practice with the exercise and then we go through the exercise during class. Alright, so if you guys don't have any questions, we are going to close off here for today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, sir. Have a good day.
You too, sir.
Bye-bye, sir.
Goodbye.
Bye, sir.